I have some things and ideas to share with you. And here's the question to begin our conversation today. How do I know I married the right person? Okay, so that's the question to ponder on today. With that pondering, I also would ask, how do you know you may have married the wrong person? So sometimes it helps to ask the question in opposite to get the mind thinking in different ways in different directions. So another similar question is, how do you know when you're shopping for a car that when you choose a car and you buy that car, how do you know you bought the right car? My mind goes to the idea that really you study it out, you look at it, you consider the options, the trade-offs, the pros and cons, and you make a choice. And in making that choice, then once you buy the car, you have that commitment to take care of that car, to put fuel in, to maintain the car, to make sure it has battery fluid, the battery's working. You make sure it has gasoline. It won't run very well at all without gasoline. Make sure it has oil so it doesn't burn up. So there's good care of a car, good maintenance, and then there's regular service that needs to happen. In a similar way, when we choose a spouse, do we maintain and take care of our spouse as was intended? All right, so those are different things to think about. So how do you know you married the right person? There's a story in my family about when me and my siblings were younger. My older brother was just old enough to go help my brother-in-law re-shingle a house. As they worked on the project and made progress, putting the shingles on the house, there were different corners and angles at times where they would go back and forth. Did I do this right? Did I do that right? And so as they went back and forth and discussed if it was right or what the best way might be to handle the corners and the valleys or the edges, they would come to agreement, and then they would say, okay, let's do it. And they would nail that shingle on. And they said, well, it must be right because it's nailed. And so having made the decision and going forward, they nailed the shingle on the roof. And then their attitude was, it must be right because it's nailed. And in a similar funny way, that's a strange story, I know, but in a similar way, that when we make the decision and commitment and we've married our spouse, then from then on, it's having the perspective that it's the right person because that's the person I married. And it's more about commitment. Now, it's easier to say than do, understandable. The reality is that we all have doubts after we make commitments. And actually, it's human nature to have doubts. That's why there's this legal clause that when you buy something, I don't know the name of the thing, but when you buy a car or buy things, oftentimes there's a 3-day window where you can back out of that sale, because we often doubt that. We feel like we get pressured in, or we pressure ourselves into doing something. Well, marriage is a big commitment. And so it's about having made that commitment and all the planning we've gone through, and having gone through the marriage, then it's that commitment to say, I made my choice and I'm going to make the choice correct. There's the old saying, you made your bed, sleep in it. Yeah, well, as society goes, there's this balance point, and society goes from one extreme to where you should stay there no matter if you're stuck or if it's bad, or if you just change on a whim and have a different feeling, you should let it go. So we go from one extreme to the other extreme. So neither of these are really correct. So we want to find the balance. So there are times where we need to realize that we may have married the wrong person. And the wrong person is someone who is not staying committed in the relationship. If they're having an affair, that's something to consider. Now, that being said, when that person is informed that the marriage is going by their actions, they have chosen to leave the marriage. So then they have the choice to come back and repair the marriage and make it work, or they're going to be cut loose. And so that's something to consider. That's when you've married the wrong person in that time, because they've made poor choices and are having an affair. Half of the couples that come in have had an affair. And so statistically, those who choose to let go of that mistake and repair the damage that that has caused, which takes time and effort and continued commitment and focus, then those 50% of couples that choose that, then they create a better relationship than they even had before the affair. And that's because there's a lot of poor thinking and choices and behavior that going into allowing that even to happen in the first place. And so by recognizing they've done badly and willing to make those corrections, then they create a great relationship. The other thing to consider very, very strongly is that if there is abuse. In the case of abuse, it's a poor choice, at least in that time. So it's good to have separation until that abuse can be resolved and worked on. If it's a good idea to come back together because the abuse is eliminated out of the relationship, then it's possible to build a healthy relationship. But with that abuse, it's impossible to have a good, healthy, loving, committed relationship. So those are the two things. Whether or not you're married to the right person or the wrong person, those are things to consider. So it's human nature that when we meet someone, we have this chemistry with them. And that's a wonderful thing. God, as I understand, made us that way so that we would get together. Otherwise, a lot of men would be living in the woods as hermits. And so the chemistry of getting together, of wanting to be together, is a healthy thing. Now, the unfortunate thing about that is that most often when those feelings and those passions are so strong, that the chemistry causes us to have a distorted perspective. It takes the strengths that we see and makes them appear greater than they are, and it takes the weaknesses that we observe and makes them smaller than they are. And so that's the challenge, is that when we've made the commitment, that we want to balance that out to where we see the person as they really are and learn to love them as they are, because really we marry a fantasy. Who we marry is who we think they are, not who they really are. And so as we get to know who they really are, it's a matter of that commitment of falling in love with them, working to love them and serve them over and over again. And that's how you make that choice that you made the right choice. So how do I know I married the right person? It's by knowing that I am being the right person for them. And as we serve and understand how to support and invite and find a balance of boundaries and service, receiving and giving, that balance is how we become the right person for them. And with those loving invitations and boundaries, we find that balance, and then they become the right person for us. And so it's more a matter of creating that over and over again. So being in the marriage, one of the things I mentioned in another video is the third element of change, and that is support and to eliminate sabotage. That's an important part of knowing that we married the right person, is a person's willing to eliminate sabotage. It's easy to do, and many of us all get caught up in different ways of sabotaging the relationship. Of course, as mentioned earlier, an affair is a big sabotage, And then that's a 50-50 chance to get that worked out. We need to eliminate those things that distract from keeping the marriage a priority and working on that in the way that we need to nurture that. I often tell individuals in my office that if you want to live with a cactus, give them love once in a while. Like watering a flower. If we water a flower every day or every second or third day, or some flowers once a week, then we're going to have a wonderful flower. And in the relationship, if we feed the relationship love on a consistent, persistent, regular basis, then we're going to have a beautiful, healthy, loving relationship. If we only water it, feed the relationship good, healthy things, then as cactuses do, they grow very thick skin because they have to retain the little bit of water they do get, and to survive the heat and the scorching sun and wait until the next rain, which sometimes could be 6 months. They grow these pricklies. All of the cactus, the thorns become very not only annoying when they're small, but the bigger the cactus, the longer it has to go without any rainfall, the bigger the spines and the spikes that cause problems. And so take that into account as you consider being the right person in the marriage. So another saying to think about, the phrase is, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Well, if that's the case, the reality is it's because you're seeing it from a distance and it may not be as it appears so. And the other thing is, maybe you're not watering your side of the fence enough. If the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, you need to water your side of the fence much more. If it's looking greener, you're looking at it from a distance. One time I had my wife and a couple of my children, they were younger. We were out on a country drive up in the outskirts of a small town where there was a reservoir, and it was early in the spring before the reservoir got filled up. It was a small one. But across the reservoir on the other side of the hill, we saw a very plush green area of the side of the hill. We thought, well, that would be a wonderful place to go drive and have a picnic. From the distance, it looked beautiful, soft, lush green grass, the kind of tender grass in the spring. Well, as we drove over there and got really close, what we found were some little thorn bushes about 4 to 6 inches tall, and they were full of prickly burrs that made it impossible to even enjoy going into. We got close enough to realize we didn't even go in, and we left to find another place. That's the challenge, is from a distance, things look better than they are. And also we have a distorted perception of how it's supposed to be. And so after we make that commitment and find it as things really are, learning to manage some of the prickly things that we have in ourselves and in our spouse, working those through in the relationship and keeping things watered so they're healthy. I hope this has given you different perspective and a recommitment to be the right person, and in being the right person, giving the right kind of love and invitation to your spouse, and at times commitments, expectations with boundaries of communicating with them to get your needs understood and understanding their needs and working together as a team to make it great.